Representative Gahn Gershowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 58 is a significant step forward in our efforts here in the General Assembly to reduce the amount of single-use plastics that we are putting into our environment. And importantly, this bill gives our state agencies an opportunity to lead on this issue.
Representative, we're still on Amendment 2.
Yes, this is, I'm talking about Floor Amendment 2, which to Senate Bill 58, which includes a phasing out of single-use polystyrene foam in state agencies.
Representative Gahn Gershowitz moves to the adoption of Floor Amendment number 2. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Any further amendments, Mr. Clerk?
Floor Amendment number 3 offered by Representative Gahn Gershowitz.
Representative Gahn Gershowitz for Floor Amendment number 3.
Yeah, so Floor Amendment 3, I believe, is the amendment that just removes language with respect to a study that we understand includes data that is not available. So we're going to continue with that study on an informal basis through the governor's office, but it just removes language per the request of IDES.
Representative Gahn Gershowitz moves adoption of Floor Amendment number 3. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Any further amendments, Mr. Clerk?
No further amendments. No motions are filed.
Third reading. Please read the bill, Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 58, a bill for an act concerning safety. Third reading of the Senate bill.
Representative Gahn Gershowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So as I was saying on the underlying bill, the importance of it is really to reduce the amount of single-use plastics that we have in our environment, which is both good for our environment as well as public health. And this bill is fundamentally about giving our state agencies the opportunity to lead on this issue by phasing out the use of single-use polystyrene foam in our state agencies. Happy to answer any questions.
Representative Windhorst is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
She indicates she will. You may proceed.
Thank you. Does this compostable foodware mandate apply to schools and universities?
So by schools, if let me refer to the language, but it would apply to universities, state universities, public ones, yes.
And do you envision in the future coming back and looking to add other units of government into this requirement, such as local school districts, local units of government?
That bill is not under consideration at this time. I think, we've had some robust conversation about my goal to reduce the use of single-use plastics overall. And I presented a bill to this body that would have phased out the use of polystyrene foam by the restaurant industry. We believe that this is an important step forward to do so, at least with our state agencies who can take a leadership role in reducing the amount of the environmental impact on polystyrene foam.
Is the General Assembly included in this requirement?
I believe that any state agency that procures through CMS would be, so yes.
There was a fiscal note on the bill, and particularly from CMS, that related to the DOC and veterans homes. I believe an estimated cost increase of 30 to 50% depending on the item for those agencies. Does that sound correct to you?
Leader, I think I may have had an opportunity to take a deeper dive on that issue than is necessarily reflected in that note. And so, with your indulgence, I'd like to give some background information on costs that I think will lend some context for those numbers.
Okay.
I think, one, it's important to note that, there is a wide variety of product out there available in the market. And this bill does not dictate what particular product an agency would choose. So there is going to be a range in price depending on what an agency decides to choose with respect to an alternative. But I think it's important to note that that in an analysis by the state of New York within the past year, it cited a less than penny difference between polystyrene and their sustainable alternatives. So we're talking about a cost difference that is less than a penny. So by saying that something is double, you're still talking about a cost difference that for a unit would be less than a cent. We're talking about a very low marginal cost for a product that will have a significant benefit not only to our environment but to our health.
Have any additional costs been budgeted for?
Not that I'm aware of, but CMS is neutral on the bill with the inclusion of the technical amendment that we made to address just, at their request with respect to ensuring that there weren't any unintended consequences.
Can you tell me where these compostable foodware are manufactured?
I don't have that information as far as compostable manufacturers in the state of Illinois, but one of the things that we have committed to doing, Leader, is working with the governor's office to take a look at how we can encourage manufacturers in the state of Illinois to be leaders in this space.
Your amendment number 3 eliminated the jobs impact study. Is that accurate?
So that was a request of IDES. Apparently, the way that language was written would have required them to rely on data that is apparently not available in the way that it was under Amendment 3. So it's not that we don't want to do a job study. The governor's office is committed to doing that study, but more on an informal basis. It was an issue with the language from IDES, so it was removed at their request.
Was there any consideration to putting the proper language in the amendment and having the study done formally rather than informally?
I think in light of where we are in terms of time, the preference was to ensure that we got the bill across the finish line and with the commitment that we would continue to look at those numbers with the governor's office.
Because there, I'm sure you're aware, will be a jobs impact on the state. At least 25% of polystyrene in North America is manufactured in Illinois. Polystyrene foodware is also manufactured at a number of manufacturing facilities throughout the state. So there will be an impact. Do you acknowledge that on jobs?
What I would say is that there is nothing in this bill that would prevent a polystyrene manufacturer from producing product that is not sold to a state agency in the state of Illinois. We think this is a good step forward and gives our manufacturers time to adapt to offering more environmentally friendly products.
So do you recall last year there was a bill, Senate Bill 1915 in the prior General Assembly. It provided for a 5% cost preference for compostable material for the state. Do you recall that?
I'm sorry, I don't recall.
Okay. Well, I guess the question is, why don't we see what occurs with that bill? That was just effective in January 1st. Why don't we let that effort take effect, give it its full ability to show whether it's useful or not before we make further changes?
We believe that this is an important step forward and shows leadership by our state agencies in reducing the use of polystyrene foam.
But there are other ways that this goal could be accomplished. We attempted one of them last year. Why don't we see if that can achieve the goal that's desired in a more effective way than this?
Leader, I appreciate that you may be opposed to this particular bill. What I would say is that I have been very explicit in my desire to reduce the amount of single-use polystyrene foam. supported a larger bill. I think this is an important step forward, and I would ask that the body support this effort today.
Was there any consideration given to a report on how much the material costs would be over other material, and whether or not the material is ready available, and again, where those materials will be manufactured?
What I can say is that based on other states, the costs of the transition are de minimis.
Do we still have an issue about the availability of the items and where these items are being manufactured that needs to be considered?
So we had a very robust debate on this, both on this particular bill and in the context of the bill that I passed that would have phased out the use of polystyrene foam in the restaurant industry. And we heard testimony about the availability of biodegradable, compostable, and non-polystyrene foam containers. I would just say that while I don't have a pricing or a supply chart in front of me, I am confident that there is product available that would meet the needs of state agencies to comply.
Thank you. To the bill, there are some real concerns about this bill, and for members on our side, I would encourage a no vote.
Representative Halbrook is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bill, there was a few no votes in the Senate, several that did not vote on this bill. We're concerned about where language like this will ultimately lead, that it may just be too far and too overreaching. You know, we're certain that this will impact jobs and manufacturing in this state. We believe it's going to add cost, and we believe it will limit our choice. I urge a no vote. Thank you.
Representative Myers recognized.
Will sponsor yield?
She indicates she will.
At our state fairs, are we going to be allowed to use these or not? Is it up to the vendors? Is it Department of Ag? Who's going to make the ruling on all these different businesses that come set up at our state fairs and bring in revenue to the state of Illinois?
Yeah, so it's my understanding that because the state fair is, state land, it's a state event, that it would apply to the state fair.
Okay, they are private vendors, so this bill affecting state agencies is going to affect private vendors in the state of Illinois, right?
It means that they would have to find something other than polystyrene foam.
Okay, so extra cost. When you say that, as is, I got my Polar Pop cup right here, it's only adding a penny to the cost. These aren't much more than a penny or two a piece, so you're adding 50% cost to it. And if you've watched me, maybe I should put a number on it, but I use the same cup all week and refill it with iced tea out of my refrigerator here. I'm recycling it. So it is a recyclable product.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
You're saying it's only a penny cost. Well, that penny cost is maybe only a penny or two for the whole cup. So you are greatly increasing the price. When you say just a penny, it's not much. But when you're only paying a penny or two for that cup anyhow, that is a very large jump in cost. So the penny, if you can't tell me what exactly a cup costs, you can't tell me if that penny's 2%, 10%, 50%, or 100% increase.
What I can say is that the real cost difference between foam and compostable products are measured in individual cents and are reduced even more when buying in bulk.
These are very reasonable to buy. That's why they are used. You are raising the cost of it. What about the companies that were encouraged to come to Illinois to help save and keep our landfills from being filled? Those companies came here to recycle products like this, set up business here at the encouragement of the state, encourage of the all the people who want to save the environment, and they did that. What kind of funds are we going to have for these companies that took their private funds, not state dollars, build these factories in Illinois? How are we going to reward them now that we're taking this away from them because they came here to do the right thing to protect the environment?
Is that a question?
That's a question. They made that commitment to come here to help protect the environment, to keep this from going in our landfills, and set up business in Illinois. So we're taking away their business now. So how are we going to take care of these companies?
What business are you talking about? Are you talking about polystyrene recycling businesses?
We have poly-recycling styrofoam businesses in Illinois.
So this impacts the single-use polystyrene foam used by state agencies. Sadly, there is likely to be a considerable amount of polystyrene still in our environment, less than 1% of which today is recycled. Sounds to me like there's about 99% of polystyrene foam still out there in the environment that is waiting to be recycled.
Is that 99% in Illinois, or is that across the country?
I don't have those numbers in front of me.
Okay, we have the factories here that were encouraged to come here and do this, and now you're turning your back on them. Just remember that, state of Illinois. Thank you.
Representative Gahn Gershowitz to close.
This is an opportunity for us to take a significant step forward to protect public health, our water, our resources for the next generation to come, and I'd ask for an aye vote.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 58 pass? All in favor vote aye, all opposed vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record on this question. There are 71 voting in favor, 43 voting no, and 0 voting present. And this bill, having received the constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed. On page 4 of the calendar, under Senate Bill's third reading, we have Senate Bill 1402, offered by Representative LaPointe. Out of the record. On page 4 of the calendar, on third reading, we have Senate Bill 1543, offered by Representative Rita. Out of the record. On page 2 of the calendar, we have House bills on second reading. House Bill 301, Representative Stewart. Mr. Clerk, please read the bill.
House Bill 301, a bill for an act concerning education. The bill was read for a second time previously. No committee amendments. Floor amendment number 1 is offered by Representative Stewart.
Representative Stewart.
Thank you. Floor amendment number 1 becomes the bill. Can we adopt the amendment and then discuss it on third?
Representative Stewart moves adoption of floor amendment number 1. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the amendment is adopted. Any further amendments, Mr. Clerk?
No further amendments. No motions are filed.
Third reading. Please read the bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 301, a bill for an act concerning education. Third, the reading of this House bill.
Representative Stewart is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 301, let me give a little bit of a very brief history. Starting in about 2017, there were a group of very concerned representatives and senators from both sides of the aisle about struggles that our universities were having across the state, and specifically with attracting and retaining and recruiting students from right here in Illinois. And many of them were leaving for other states. They're going to Alabama, they're going to Iowa, they're going to Missouri and Tennessee because they're getting offers of these tremendous merit scholarships, and they are drawing them away from our state. So we had a higher ed working group that was formed to tackle lots of these issues, and we came up with a program called Aim High, which has been a really successful merit-based scholarship program that all of our institutions have reported that has really helped in recruiting and being successful and keeping those students here. So that was a pilot program that's due to expire, and what House Bill 301 will do is make it permanent. I'd like to briefly thank original architects of the program. We have a few of us still here in the chamber, myself, Representative Burke, Representative Hammond, and Speaker Welch. We're all part of that collective group. And I just wanted to take a second to thank Representatives Chung, Ortiz, Swanson, Freese, and Rosenthal for joining in on the group this year and the work you put in it all year long to get to where we are. And we would be nowhere without our staff, so thank you to Jason and Zach for attending all those meetings and helping us get this to the finish line. I would appreciate an aye vote.
Representative Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
She indicates she will.
Representative Stewart, I want to thank you for bringing this to the body's attention and this effort in making this program permanent. I know that it wasn't easy getting there, but we got there, and it has proven itself to be an incredible program and a great help to our Illinois students. So again, I want to thank you, and I just wish it wasn't subject to appropriation and that appropriation could be permanent. But thank you for your effort.
Representative Ammons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the sponsor of this bill yield for a couple of questions?
She indicates she will.
Thank you. Representative, the program itself, as it was originally designed, we made some changes to Aim High to redress issues at institutions that could not make the full match. Does this change that procedure in any way, shape, or form?
It does. We had lots of discussions, and I understood the change to that matching requirement, and we looked at Pell eligible students to kind of create two tiers of that. We had lots of meetings with those schools to try to dig down and understand how we could help match more to get more dollars to support students to, to fund their education. So all of those institutions had lots of input, lots of meetings. We connected with ISAC. Some institutions were missing an understanding of exactly what counts in those matching dollars. So they were able to work with ISAC and understand how they could increase their reporting of matching dollars. And so we did bump up, it had changed to a 20% match in, I guess that was 21. And it's going up to a 35% match. And again, that number came from those institutions that's a level they could attain. And then the other institutions that were at a 60% match, they have also been raised to a 70% match.
So let me clarify that institutions who've come to the Higher Education Appropriations Committee just recently concerned about being able to meet their obligations under their new union contracts, they are suggesting, and you're saying here, that they agree to pay and they can meet the 35%. That's Chicago State, Governor State, Northeastern Illinois University, and Western, who couldn't make the match initially, which is why we went from the original plan to 20%. And you're saying that they agree that they can actually meet 35% match.
Yeah, and I want to clarify, we've spoken with all those institutions. Western has reported that they've been matching at at the 1-to-1, the 100% match during the use of this program anyway. So like I said, we had multiple meetings with all of those institutions and connected with ISAC, who did a great job of making sure they understood. They've created a lot of wraparound service type programs, and many of those things are applicable to Aim High as matching dollars. And so that's how they were able to say they can get to that 35%.
And if the institution is not able to get to the 35%, what happens to the dollars from that institution?
So another thing to point out is that the implementation of that raise to 35% is delayed out a whole nother year. So they have time to reach that. Obviously, everything we do here, we can always come back and take another look at. And I've been working very hard with those institutions. What we're trying to do is get as many dollars to students as we can. And obviously, if we need to have continued meetings with those institutions, those will continue to happen. And if we need to adjust the percent, we can adjust the percent.
And let me ask where the provision came from that would allow part-time students to receive Aim High funds.
So the provision for part-time is only in the very final semester. It's at the discretion of the institutions. So it's, on a case-by-case basis. And it came from the institutions. We had Northeastern, and I believe it was Western, but I may be mistaking which institution. It was Governor State, thank you, that brought it to our attention. Sometimes at the very end of a program, a student may only need, let's say, 9 hours instead of 12 credit hours. So oftentimes a student who, does not need to work jobs just to be able to afford to be going to school, they'll take a fluff course or a fun course. My son took a course in Pilates and dance during his senior year because he kind of had credits to play with. But some students don't have that time. And so if they only need 9 credits because they've been diligent students, they were able to get dual credit and other things to get them ahead and to get them ahead of track, then if the institution wants to allow them to continue their Aim High to finish their last semester, but not have to be that full 12 credit hour student, they have that discretion.
And then the last question I have, Aim High was developed during the budget impasse process as a program that was to keep the best and brightest in the state of Illinois, is the language that was used. This provision creates a process by which we will continually fund people who actually have access to resources.
Well, again, we're trying to keep the best and brightest in our state. And I agree, there are people that have resources, but there are people that do not have the resources to go to college and pay out of pocket. There are many families, they are not MAP eligible, they are not Pell eligible, but they cannot afford to pay out of pocket. And they are top performing students, and they are exact kind of students that we want to keep here in our state. They are people that have teachers as parents. They earn a decent living, but by far not enough, and they certainly can't pay for college out of pocket. We want to keep those students here. So the eligibility does allow for middle-class families to be able to get, and again, these are merit scholarship dollars, not need-based dollars. And it's what other states are offering and drawing our students away.
And so finally, the Pell portion, what is the Pell requirement in this new piece that you are doing here with Aim High?
The Pell requirement, that's the threshold, and that was what was instituted in 2021, and institutions agreed with staying with that number. So an institution that is at least 49% Pell eligible has that lower matching requirement, and institutions with less than 49% Pell eligible have the higher matching requirement.
Thank you for answering those questions. I'll just say for the record, Mr. Speaker, the concern that I have after reading this, the concern is not just that we are keeping the best and brightest, but as we transfer dollars from low-income communities who can't go to school and don't have enough to cover the actual cost of school because we cannot keep a lid on the increase of the tuition costs and all the other associated fees and fines to go to school, then we are making permanent a program for folks that actually have resources. And I understand what the representative said, that middle-class families still can't afford because it's becoming out of reach for all students. But the reality is that this program is designed for people who actually have resources, and other students who cannot afford to go to school are being subject to this. And the second concern that I want on the record is that those institutions who came to Higher Ed Approach just 2 weeks ago suggesting that they had significant need in order for them to meet their obligations as the institutions, those 4 that I mentioned earlier, are suggesting now that they could actually make a 35% match on AIM High seems to be a little counterproductive and counterintuitive, and I cannot see how you can't make this obligation, but you can meet this one. This is a concern that really needs to be looked into, and Katie, I certainly hope that as this passes over, that we'll go back and look at this, because we're actually building into a system almost like we're doing with some of the K-12 stuff, benefits for communities who have a lot more resources than communities who don't. And that's my concern. I want that to be on the record, and I'll reach out to those institutions to make sure that what they do can actually match and utilize this program. Otherwise, we're actually doing something counterproductive to low-income people and certainly to people of color. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Kiker is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
She indicates you will.
Representative, thank you for bringing this. I want to circle back on a conversation I think you and I had about one of the amazing developments that occurred with the AIM High grant. Have you heard of the Husky Pledge, now called the AIM High Husky Pledge, by any chance?
Yeah, I wanted to point out one of the things that we are changing in this is all of our institutions, like I said, have been doing this. Some of them were calling it the AIM High Husky Pledge or the AIM High Panther Promise or whatever they used, and some were not, and it was hard to understand who exactly AIM High was benefiting and how much it was being used. So in this bill, all the institutions will have to use the language AIM High in the name of their program so that we can really tout it as we want our students to stay in Illinois, and we believe you can aim high.
And I think that's absolutely a fantastic marker to put on there. So what Northern Illinois University has been able to do, and I hope everybody in this chamber is aware of this, is they for generations have carved out a section of our student body serving many minority, black and brown students, many first-generation college graduates, and now, with the AIM High Husky Pledge, anyone with sufficient grades to meet, with a household income of under $75,000, can go to NIU with covered expenses. That is an amazing accomplishment. That's what we heard our governor talking about from the dais during his budget. We have given the opportunity through the assistance that AIM High has offered for the ability for those in need, who are most desperately in need to get through their college experience. We've given them the chance to do that. So I applaud you, I thank you, and I urge a hearty yes.
The chair recognizes Representative Stewart to close.
Thank you, and thank you for the thoughtful questions. I've had conversations for years about how the costs of higher ed are skyrocketing, and we should do what we can to reel those costs in. Higher ed is becoming unobtainable for families of lots of income levels. I really appreciate what our institutions have been trying to do. We had some impasse years and some years before that where we were chronically underfunding higher ed, and we've dug a big hole. And I think there was some reference made to some of our institutions really struggling to come back. And we'll work with those institutions and do what we can to get the resources there. I'm a huge supporter of higher ed. This program is going to keep our best and brightest students from Illinois, staying right here in Illinois, then becoming the doctors and the teachers and the chemists and the architects and everyone else that's going to continue to just build our great state. I would appreciate a yes vote.
The Question is, shall House Bill 301 pass? All in favor vote aye. All opposed vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Clerk, please take the record. On this question, there are 115 voting yes, 0 voting no, 0 voting present, and this bill, having received the constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed. On page 5 of the calendar, Senate bills on second reading. Senate Bill 285, Representative Moeller. Out of the record. On page 9, House Bill 2520, Representative Harper. Mr. Clerk, please read the bill. Moving the bill back to second reading, Mr. Clerk, please read the amendment.
House Bill 2520, Bill for an Act Concerning Safety. No committee amendments. Floor amendment number 1 is offered by Representative Harper.
Representative Harper.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for the adoption of the amendment. It simply removes the $200,000 permit fee, and I can debate it further on third.
Representative Harper moves adoption of floor amendment number 1. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Any further amendments, Mr. Clerk?
No further amendments. No motions are filed.
Third reading, Representative Harper.
I'm trying to. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to present House Bill 2520. Illinois has some of the dirtiest air in the country. A recent article in The Guardian revealed the 10 worst places to live in the U.S. for air pollution. It ranked the south and west sides of Chicago as third in air pollution and the Metro East as 7th in air pollution. Illinois takes up 2 spots on a nationwide list of the dirtiest air in the country. But what are we doing about it? The health disparities of our vulnerable communities is greatly due to environmental pollution and exposure to harmful pollutants like ozone, PM 2.5, and lead. This exposure is associated with a range of health issues, including respiratory problems, cardiovascular diseases, asthma, cancer, and early death. On the southeast side of Chicago, the soot in the air is so bad that if you let a meringue pie sit outside for 6 hours, it would have black particles covering the top. And yet a major air polluter, General Iron, wanted to relocate there from wealthy Lincoln Park. In McKinley Park, an asphalt plant received a permit to move into a residential area near schools, a park, and low-income housing with no public participation. And the odors from the plant are making neighbors feel sick from the fumes. In Little Village, a community that had a coal plant, the demolition of that plant released a dust cloud during the pandemic that could be seen for miles. And in the Metro East, the last incinerator in the state has left residents with numerous health concerns. These communities experience the worst impact are known as environmental justice communities, and these communities are more likely to be in low-income communities and communities of color. House Bill 2520 would designate environmental justice communities using the Illinois Solar for All environmental justice map. In those communities, applicants for the two types of permits that allow the most air pollution to be emitted would need to hold hearings for public participation involving local people and perform a cumulative impact analysis to determine the increased air pollution from these sites would make the air dangerous to breathe, in which case the permit would be denied. This bill would also allow the IEPA to look at past compliant and criminal activity of companies applying for large air permits and give local people the ability to review permits at the Illinois Pollution Control Board. This Environmental Justice Act is a step in breaking down systemic practices that have put communities of color at a disadvantage for decades. By increasing community participation and transparency in the industrial permitting process, the act ensures that government agencies take an honest look at the existing pollution in a community before allowing any more industry to pile on. This will bring much needed equity to a process that has too long put vulnerable communities at risk. I encourage and I vote.
Representative Windhorst is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
She indicates she will. You may proceed.
Thank you. Representative, in the amendment, you have removed the bill has removed the $200,000 fee. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is there an intent to re-add that fee in the Senate?
Yes, as this bill is further negotiated in the Senate, IEPA and others will figure out the scope of the program and they can better set that permit fee based on what they believe.
So we'll be voting on a bill that doesn't have a fee today, and we expect that fee to be added in the Senate. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Do we know the parameters of the fee, the dollar figures that are being discussed, at least a ballpark figure for the fee?
No, we do not.
Will it be less than $200,000?
I could not tell you right now.
Well,
the increased cost will basically, the permit fee will be the cost, right? And again, that is being negotiated in the Senate. The original cost came from the IEPA themselves, but again, they need to determine the full scope of the program, and therefore, they will be setting that price, setting that fee at a later date.
if you could, what are the requirements that are placed on companies seeking a permit? Meaning, what do they need to show in order to be able to obtain the permit?
What was the question?
What do companies need to demonstrate in order to receive a permit?
So right now, this bill only applies to the Clean Air permit, the Clean Air Act permit program, or federal enforceable state operating permits. These are air pollution permit programs that will allow a facility to emit the most air pollution. So it only applies to these two programs.
So these requirements are already in law. We're just putting additional requirements with this bill. Is that correct?
What was the question?
Requirements under the Clean Air Act and the other act you mentioned are already in the law. We're putting additional requirements through this bill.
Yes, the additional requirements is simply requiring public participation in the permitting process, holding meetings with the communities that will be affected.
And how is environmental justice community defined?
Sure, so we are using the Illinois Solar for All definition that was passed in the FEJA Act back during the Rauner administration.
And it also includes, under that definition, R3 communities, which were in the Cannabis Control Act repeal or change?
Yes, it sure does. Yes.
To the bill.
To the
Ladies
bill.
and gentlemen, this bill that we voted on, when it had a $200,000 fee, it failed to receive the requisite number of votes. Now we're told by the sponsor that there will be a fee. We just don't know how much the fee will be, and the Senate will decide the fee. Well, to me, that means this bill's not ready to move, and we need to make sure we have the bill in its final form before we're voting on it. So I would strongly urge a no vote. If this vote were to receive the requisite number of votes, I request a verification.
Leader Windhorst has requested a verification. Representative Harper to close.
People should have a say in whether or not industrial polluters are able to obtain permits to operate in their communities. We cannot continue to consolidate polluting industries in low income and communities of color. Everyone has a right to breathe, no matter their zip code. Please vote yes.
The question is, shall House Bill 2520 pass? All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote nay. The voting is open. All voted who wish. Have all voted who wish. Mr. Clerk, please take the record. On this question, there are 57 voting yes, 48 voting no, 0 voting present, and this bill have not received the constitutional majority is declared failed. Page 5 of the calendar, Senate bills on second reading. Senate Bill 1235, Representative Kifowit. Representative Kifowit. Mr. Clerk, please read the bill.
Senate Bill 1235, a bill for an act concerning public employee benefits. The bill was read for a second time previously. No committee amendments. Floor amendment number 2 is offered by Representative Kifowit.
Representative Kifowit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for the amendment of floor amendment number 2. Floor amendment number 2 removes the opposition to this bill. It simply put in a 20% cap to make it at par with the full-time employees as well.
Representative Kifowit moves adoption of floor amendment number 2. All in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Any further amendments, Mr. Clerk?
No further amendments, but a fiscal note and a state mandates note have been requested and have not been filed.
Representative Kifowit has moved to rule the notes. Oh, Representative Kifowit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the notes are inapplicable.
Representative Kifowit has moved to rule the notes inapplicable. All in favor, vote. Representative Marin, Leader Marin.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I would like to request a recorded vote on the motion, and I would like to speak to the motion.
Let's proceed.
Thank you. I noticed that we've been doing this a lot lately. We've been voting to rule notes inapplicable. Ladies and gentlemen, the rules exist for a reason. The note process exists for a reason. They add transparency to the process. They allow us to have the needed information to make the right decision. They allow the public to know the information on what we're voting on. A short while ago, we actually went through that process. There was a bill that had a note filed on it that had important information that the sponsor actually used to make a good argument for the bill that passed. This process is in place for a reason. Now, I know a lot of you on the other side of the aisle. I have a great deal of respect for a lot of you on the other side of the aisle. And while sometimes I may disagree with you on certain issues, I believe that you are promoting these bills because you believe that these are ideas that are what's best for the state of Illinois. So why would we not honor this process? Why would we not get all the information that we need to make these decisions? Do you not see that by going through that process, it strengthens your ideas? When you're able to take that information about how much an idea is going to cost or how it affects a state mandate, when you're able to use that information, it strengthens your ideas. Consequently, when you just dismiss this process, it delegitimizes your arguments. It delegitimizes your ideas. Ladies and gentlemen, these rules exist for a reason. If the rules are outdated, if they need fixed, then we need to fix them. We need to replace them. We need to do away with them. But when we just disregard this process, we tarnish the process. You delegitimize your own ideas, and we lose public trust. We are better than that. You are better than that. Vote no.
Representative Kifowit has moved to rule the notes inapplicable. All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record. On this question, there are 72 voting in favor, 40 voting no, 0 voting present, and the notes are deemed inapplicable. The Clerk.
Nothing further, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Kifowit, third reading. Please read the bill, Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 1235, a bill for an act concerning public employee benefits, third reading of the Senate bill.
Representative Kifowit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to point out first to the previous speaker, when we talk about the motions being inapplicable, they certainly are, because if the previous speaker would have read the notes that were repeated under House Floor Amendment 1, they would realize that the original Senate bill motions that we were moving to be inapplicable did not apply at that time. So I just want to urge the speakers, when they're talking about why or insulting somebody's integrity with regard to these fiscal notes, I have in my hand the fiscal note for House Amendment number 1, which is the fiscal impact. However, the fiscal impact for the underlying bill was not finished because I have a fiscal impact for House Amendment number 1. So I would urge those on the other side of the aisle to please do your homework before ranting about why a motion might be inapplicable legitimately. So thank you for that, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to make that point. To the bill I would like to present today, House Bill 1235. And as with many bills in our chamber, it starts with a story, it starts with a person. And I do feel that we need to talk about the person of which this underlying bill came from. And I realize that most of the time I go straight to the bill, but this is so important. So this is a story of an individual named Cheryl Thayer. And her name is going to be in the record because Cheryl Thayer worked for many years advocating for changes to the SURS calculation of service credit for adjuncts. And for those of you that might not know, an adjunct is a part-time professor similar to like a substitute teacher in CRS. They fill in for classes that full-time professors cannot teach or do not teach. She not only lived with this problem, but also recently passed away before she could enjoy her retirement under a proper and fair calculation for her service to community colleges. She taught for many years at Oakton Community College, but also, like many adjunct faculty, at other colleges as well. Like her adjunct colleagues, she not only worked from the first day of class to the last day of class, but also for days and weeks before the beginning of classes, preparing for the classes, and for days after grading exams, papers, and submitting her grades. As a teacher, she had the same responsibilities as her full-time colleagues at those institutions, but unlike them, she and others often did not properly receive her month's SURS service credit for her work because those classes began in the middle of the calendar month and ended in the middle of another month. Add to this that many college classes are now not taught on a traditional 16-week semester, but rather in an 8-week or 4-week semester, same class, same material, same credit for students, but reduced service credit for adjunct faculty. This injustice was Cheryl's passion for many years, especially after she found out at the end when she wanted to retire, when she wanted to have time with her family, when she wanted to enjoy what many people enjoy in retirement, she found out at that time that she could not realistically retire 7 years ago because of the current unfair and unrealistic calculation of service credit. Members of the General Assembly, we have before you a bill that is brought to our attention by individuals like Cheryl Thayer, who, through a process that's been defended by SURS, that in committee, SURS testified that members working are not aware of this adjustment until towards the end when they wish to retire. This does not impact the pension calculation because as in what I have right in my hand called a fiscal impact statement from SURS, the system's actuary does not recognize the actuarial liabilities associated with part-time employees. They just assume all employees are full-time. Therefore, this bill on behalf of Cheryl Thayer allows adjunct professors to retire with dignity, to retire with the benefits they believe they're being promised the whole time they are working, and really, truly treats people with respect in our adjunct facilities and in our community colleges, and I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Reich is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bill. That anecdotal story is touching, but the fact is that we're dealing with somebody who had the ability to find out what their pension was going to be long before they decided they wanted to retire. I'm looking at a fiscal note. I'm looking at a fiscal note from COGFA, and while the sponsor of the bill is correct in saying that the actuary for the pension plan treats everybody as full-time, so therefore it's not going to add to the liability under, the accrued liability of the thing. I'd like to read something that's from this fiscal note. Systems actuary does not recognize the actuarial liabilities associated with part-time and assumes all employees are full-time. Okay, that's fine. So for the purposes of their actuarial calculation, for the purposes of determining whether or not the funding is adequate to not reduce the amount of or reduce the funding ratio, one thing that wasn't mentioned by the sponsor of the bill is the following statement, which is in the fiscal note. SURS, State University Retirement System, claims more assets will be necessary to pay estimated benefits due to the new accrual schedule and the elimination of the part-time adjustment. This is, in fact, an increase. The amount by which payouts will increase as a result of these changes has not been provided by the State University Retirement System. Here's what's happening. Under the current law, you have to work 15 days to be considered eligible for that month's credit. What this bill does is says if you work any time at all and contribute any amount of money to the plan, that for purposes of calculating your pension makes you eligible for that full month of accrual. You haven't paid in but one day maybe, but you're eligible for the entire month. Hence the statement by COGFA that more assets will be necessary in order to pay out those benefits. This is an increase in cost. So I ask you, even though the notes have been ruled inapplicable because of some statement that, you know, I don't know what it is that we were being accused of here, but the fiscal note that was issued states right very plainly that more assets are going to be needed in order to pay these benefits. So even though the rules have been ruled inapplicable, here's a fiscal note that says just the opposite. Just the opposite. It's going to take more money to pay these benefits. Vote no.
Representative Wilhour is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Indicate she will.
Representative, part of the reason that you're running this bill is basically, in essence, the person receiving the pension was seeing something on her reporting that wasn't actually accurate at the end of the day. Basically, the reporting that she was seeing that the system was putting out was saying that she was going to get more than what she ended up with, more than what she had earned under statute currently. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's a 50% reduction adjustment that is made from SURS. And as was this debate thoroughly debated in committee, and I certainly do appreciate the remarks of minority spokesperson, the testimony in committee does reflect that their system does not account for part-time employees until they are on the verge of retirement, and then they get a part-time adjustment which takes that amount and cuts it in half. And it was in committee that we realized that TRS does not have this adjustment. It's for a small percentage of the whole SURS system, so it only applies to a small percentage of individuals that are members of SURS. And in addition to that, anybody who knows anybody in the teaching profession knows that when you are educating individuals, it is not one day. It is not one day. It is several days at home, grading papers, several weekends, time preparing. So to just say that somebody could work one day is really disingenuous to the hard work that our adjunct professors put in and day out at our community colleges. And they deserve to be compensated. They deserve to be recognized, and they deserve respect for all the time that they do. And that is why I'm presenting
Thank you.
this bill.
I appreciate that. I agree that the reporting is an issue. Why don't we just fix the reporting issue?
They testified in committee that their system was unable to do that. So this puts it on par with TRS. TRS does not have this type of reduction at the end of the retirement year.
Your emotional plea on this bill is we need this because basically this person has been wrong. She's not receiving what the reporting was saying. But you know, to the bill, Mr. Speaker.
To the bill.
This is typical in the way that we do things in Springfield. There's a problem. There's a really easy fix that's actually not going to cost us any money. But instead of fixing it, we're just making the problem worse. Instead of fixing the problem on the reporting this legitimate problem, we're just going to increase benefits because another system does it irresponsibly. That's why our pension system is a disaster in this state. That's why our property taxes are astronomically high in this state, because we steadfastly refuse to do the tough things in this state, and we just little by little continue to make things worse. So I would strongly encourage, if you care about your property taxes and things of that nature, to vote no on this legislation. Thank you.
Representative Stewart is recognized.
Thank you. I would just like to speak to the bill.
The bill.
I want to thank the sponsor, first of all, for bringing this bill forward. And I know that you and I have talked about this issue before. I just want the amount of disrespect for educators that I hear from the other side of the aisle continuously is disheartening. They talk about we care about our teachers. They protect our kids. Aren't they great when they jump in front of bullets in the classroom to protect kids? But then they don't really want to support the things that they do as teachers. So to complain, as someone did, that they work for one day and then they get the full month benefit shows me that you don't understand the work of an adjunct. If the semester starts on, let's say, August 25th, that adjunct is working and planning and prepping probably starting in June. And all we're asking is to respect the fact that probably starting by August 1st, they've been prepping that class. And guess what else happens to adjuncts all the time? They prep for a class starting in June, and they work in July, and they take that summertime away from time with their families when their kids are home from school and they could be spending quality time with them. They work on it, and they're ready to go, and then just prior to the semester, that class gets yanked out from under them. And then they get paid nothing for all that work they have put in. You continuously disrespect the work that teachers do at all levels, pre-K all the way through. The work they do outside of the classroom to make sure that they are providing the best possible education they can for their students, whatever age they are. I urge everyone to support this bill to show respect for educators across the board. Thank you very much, Representative Kifowit, for bringing this forward.
Leader McCombie is recognized.
To the bill. You know, I was going to be a yes on this vote until the previous speaker. And I just got to say, if you all care so much about teachers and law enforcement and retirees, then put up a bill to repeal Tier 2. Put your money where your mouth is.
Representative Kifowit to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the previous speaker, we are working to fix that situation as well. And what was mentioned, this is not a benefit enhancement. Amendment number 2, the 20% that eliminated the opposition to SURS is a cap, the same cap that is in full-timers. So it is eliminates pension spiking. As was mentioned, I realize that there have been some claims from SURS. At the end of the day, they are neutral on this bill, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 1235 pass? All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record on the question. There are 85 voting yes, 28 voting no, 2 voting present, and this bill, having received the constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed. Leader J.C. Hoffman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move to suspend for Senate Bill 1068, House Rule 41B's requirement that a bill authorizing or directing the conveyance of real estate by the state may not be voted upon in committee or upon second reading unless a certified appraisal of the value of the interest has been filed. This is in response to a request from Representative Jacobs in order to allow this to be heard in committee and move forward, and we would support that motion.
Leader Hoffman moves to suspend for Senate Bill 1068, House Rule 41B's requirement that a bill authorizing or directing the conveyance of real estate by the state may not be voted upon in committee or upon second reading unless a certified appraisal of the value of the interest has been filed. All in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the requirements are waived. Page 5 of the calendar, Senate Bill second reading, Senate Bill 684. Mr. Clerk, please read the bill.
Senate Bill 684, a bill for an act concerning local government. The bill was read for a second time previously. No committee amendments. Floor amendment number 3 is offered by Representative Hoffman.
Leader Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is regarding the makeup of the board of Central Illinois Regional Airport Authority. It indicates that in addition to 2 members being appointed by the Mayor of Bloomington, 2 members by the Mayor of Normal, that the McLean County Board shall appoint 2 individuals from an area's population of less than 5,000 people and another individual from an area that is not located in Bloomington or Normal.
Leader Hoffman moves adoption of floor amendment 3. All in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the amendment is adopted. Any further amendments, Mr. Clerk?
No further amendments, but several notes have been requested and have not been filed.
Leader Hoffman.
I ask these notes be ruled inapplicable.
Leader Hoffman moves that all notes be ruled inapplicable. Representative Calkins is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the motion. Here we go again. Talk about deceptive practices. This is a very, very important note. The people of McLean County deserve to know what the fiscal implication is if we pass this bill and it becomes law. I ask you, please, vote no. We need to know. The people of McLean County deserve to know what the fiscal impact of this bill is. Thank you.
Leader Hoffman has moved to rule the notes inapplicable. All in favor vote aye. All opposed vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record. On this question, there are 71 yeses, 40 noes, 0 voting present, and the notes are deemed inapplicable. Leader Hoffman, I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk.
Nothing further.
Third reading, Leader Hoffman.
Senate Bill 684, a bill for an act concerning local government. Third reading of this Senate bill.
Leader Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House. This bill would create the Central Illinois Regional Airport Authority, which would include all of the territory within the corporate limits of McLean County. Any existing airport authority within McLean County would be dissolved. The assets and liabilities of the dissolved authority will be assumed by the new Central Illinois Regional Airport Authority. On amendment number 3, I attempted to address some of the issues that were brought up in committee regarding the makeup of the board and ensuring that all parts of McLean County have representation. By doing that, I believe that the board is reflective of the entire community, including Bloomington, Normal, and all of the area of McLean County outside of Bloomington, Normal. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Calkins is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Indicates he will.
Representative, I guess we'll start with the obvious. What part of McLean County do you represent?
I don't represent McLean County, but I went to Illinois State University, and as a proud Redbird, I care about this airport.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. We wish you would have stayed. You'd be sitting on this side of the aisle. There are 5 members in this body that represent McLean County. None of them are on the board as sponsors of this bill. Can you tell me why?
I'll sign the slip if you want to be on.
No, but can you tell me why none of us are on it?
I can't tell you why.
Because we don't support this. People of McLean County, and all of us know this, all 5 of us, we understand. They don't approve of this process. You know, we hear all the time from folks on your side of the aisle, you don't support us when we come to the floor with a bill to get a elected Board of Education in Chicago, or that we want to do something for our community or our township or a city. And you ask us to support that. And for the most part, I think we try to, or we do. I know I try to look very favorably on that legislation. And yet here we are, members of this House from McLean County, and what we've asked, and really all we've asked, is to give the people of McLean County an opportunity to weigh in on this. Let them have a referendum. Let them do what they feel is the right way to address this issue. So, I mean, do you disagree with that, sir?
I believe that ensuring the stability of this airport in a manner that was done similarly in Peoria County, Crawford County, DuPage County, and others is vitally important. I think this would do that.
Is there a pressing need? Have we heard of a pressing need to get this done before the people of McLean County can weigh in on it?
I simply believe this is the way it's been done in the past, and that's why I'm supporting this.
Has the McLean County Board weighed in on this formally?
I don't know.
Well, I can answer that, and the answer is no, they haven't. There's been one resolution filed with the Executive Committee of the McLean County Board in opposition to this. That resolution was tabled until next month. The McLean County Board has no support, there is no formal support for this on the McLean County Board.
I would simply say that amendment number 3, we attempted to address issues and gave the McLean County Board Chairman 3 appointments, all from outside the Bloomington normal area.
Representative, why did you reject amendment number 2 that gave the McLean County Board all of the appointments to this airport authority?
Because I believe since the current airport authority is simply Bloomington and Normal, I believe that having the mayors of Bloomington give 2 appointments and the mayor of Normal have 2 appointments will ensure that all parts of the county are on the board, have members on the board, and they will be reflective of the entire county.
Is there any other agency that has a mayoral appointment, any other countywide agency, animal control, health department, EMS, 911, do the mayors of Bloomington or Normal have an appointment to any of those countywide agencies?
I don't know about that specifically, but there are several other authorities where mayors throughout the state have appointments to their local authorities.
Well, I can answer the question, Representative, and the answer is no. Now, the mayors currently have an appointment because it's the Bloomington Normal Airport Authority. And the airport authority wants this to be a McLean County Airport Authority. And that's why, as a compromise that we offered, although we think this process is flawed, but we offered a compromise. Let the county board appoint all 7 members. And you rejected that. Why?
because I believe that we want to make sure that the authority is reflective of the entire county. So the mayor of Urbana or mayor of Norma would have 2, the mayor of Bloomington would have 2, and then the outer county would be appointed by the chairman of the county board.
But Amendment 2 said that 2 of the representatives would come from Bloomington, 2 of the representatives would come from Normal. That's what Amendment 2 was. It's just that the appointments would be made with the advice and consent of the county board, because this airport authority is now going to be a county-wide non-governmental organization, just like the health department, just like animal control, just like E911. It's going to be the whole county, and the county board is going to have now no supervision, no interest. I mean, they get three of the 7 appointments, and yet this is a county-wide effort. It baffles me, and I would hope that you would consider that, and I would hope the members on your side would consider the fact that the people that actually represent McLean County disapprove of this process. Would you, there is no, and I think we've established, and I know that the airport authority would agree, that there's no rush. There's no rush to do this. Would you be willing to hold this until we come back in the veto session and let the people of McLean County weigh in on what they want?
We're going to call this today.
To the bill.
The bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an issue that greatly affects everyone in McLean County. This is a property tax increase on every small community, every farm in McLean County. And yet none of these people have had any input into how this process is going down. All they've asked is that they be given an opportunity to have a referendum, to have a say in how they want this airport authority put together. Out of respect for the people of McLean County, I would ask you, please vote no on this bill. Let us, the people that represent McLean County, work this out and come back to you with their solution. Not a solution that's being run through this House by somebody that lives 150 miles away. Please, help us. Vote no.
Representative Howder is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Casey will.
Well, Leader, I'm just really confused, and I've heard from a lot of my constituents in McLean County, which I represent, that are opposing this bill. Have you heard from any of my constituents that I represent opposing this bill?
There were individuals who were supporting and opposing the bill that were in committee.
You know, I was a county board member in Tazewell County, and I was a voter. And when property taxes came up, citizens got the chance to vote on it, and or the actual county board had a chance to vote on it. Why are we taking it that pathway out of the hands of the voters or the county board and bringing it to the state level? Is this the new technique that we're going to use to raise property taxes?
Well, this has been done on a variety of occasions, including Peoria County, Crawford County, DuPage County, and others, in order to stabilize the airport funding and stabilize the airport authority. Incidentally, the head of the regional airport authority indicated that the levy would not increase, that would remain the same, and made that commitment in committee. Therefore, some people would be spreading the property tax base for the airport, and the current property taxpayers who are footing the entire burden of the airport, while it is really a regional asset, they would probably see a decrease in their property taxes.
Well, that's all well and good, but why don't give them a chance to do that? I know it's not increasing it, but it's widening the base, and it's hitting my farmers in my communities very hard. Do you know the average property tax increase that will now be on McLean County farmers?
I do not. It depends on the, I guess it depends on the size of the farm, right?
Exactly, but now they have
still
a
would
new-
apply. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We still would be applying the farmland assessment. That doesn't change any of that. So that lower assessment for farmland, which I have always supported, would still be maintained.
But the Farm Bureau is opposed to this.
I think they are. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, they are. To the bill.
To the bill.
You know, I came here to represent people in my district, and if they can't represent themselves in a referendum, if they can't represent themselves by their elected officials on a county board, if they can't represent themselves through me, and we have 5 representatives that are from McLean County, that their voice is not being heard. They have a representative from hundreds of miles away who is bringing this in a venue shopping technique that I oppose. It's a loss of local control, and it's an insult to the representatives in the district. It's an insult to the voters and the county board. Vote no on this bill.
I do appreciate the comments of the individuals or the representatives that recently spoke. I can just tell you that in the past, when we have done these types of things, the airports have flourished, they become stronger, and they become more stable. So that's why this path was taken. I did take to heart some of the comments that were made in committee by the individuals who do represent that area, in that we tried to make the board reflective of the population of McLean County. And so that was the amendment that allowed for and ensured that there would be rural representation on this board. I've been told, and I wish I would have known this earlier, that 12 out of the 20 county board members who are on the McLean County Board currently support this endeavor. So I would ask for an aye vote. I understand and I appreciate the comments of the previous speakers, but I think this is good for the stability and economic growth of the area.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 684 pass? All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record on this question. There are 73 voting yes, 40 voting no, 0 voting present, and this bill, having received the constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed. On page 5 of the calendar, Senate bills on second reading. Senate Bill 285, Mr. Clerk. Representative Moeller.
Senate Bill 285, a bill for an act concerning criminal law. The bill was read for a second time previously. No committee amendments, no floor amendments, no motions are filed.
Representative Moeller. Third reading. Please read the bill, Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 285, a bill for an act concerning criminal law. Third reading of this Senate bill.
Now, Representative Moeller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 285 makes changes to the Controlled Substances Act and changes the way the state's prescription drug monitoring program works to ensure that pharmacists, hospitals, and other prescribers are able to track opioid prescriptions and help prevent opioid prescription shopping. It's important that the system works well, and we know that because we know prescribers are able to easily and readily check the system. This bill helps encourage that usage. We currently have a system in place, but right now there's only one system that is available to pharmacists and doctors.
This bill would prohibit the Department of Human Services from requiring pharmacies and other providers from using a particular entity or system for access and integration into the prescription monitoring program. It also spells out requirements for system integration with the PMP. This bill was negotiated, and the Department of Human Services is neutral. I know of no opposition and happy to ask or answer any questions. Thank you.
No further questions. Representative Moeller to close.
Thank you. I would ask for an aye vote.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 285 pass? All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record on this question. There are 115 voting yes, 0 voting no, 0 voting present. This bill, having received the constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed. Representative Dittich, for what reason do you seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, please let the record reflect on House Bill 2520. I intended to vote yes.
The record will so reflect. On page 5 of the calendar, Senate Bill second reading, Senate Bill 764. Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 764, a bill for an act concerning regulation. The bill is read for a second time previously. No committee amendments, no floor amendments, no motions are filed.
Third reading. Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 764, a bill for an act concerning regulation. Third reading of the Senate bill.
Representative Moeller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 764 creates the Vision Care Plan Regulation Act. The legislation is intended to create greater transparency and flexibility for those who are providing vision care in the community. The legislation was heavily negotiated in the Senate. It's my understanding there is no opposition. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I would ask for an aye vote.
Representative Jacobs is recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. I just wanted to, as an optometrist, I just wanted to echo that this is not opposed by anybody. It's a very good bill. It helps the individual businesses that are running in optometric practices. I suggest also a yes, very highly recommend a yes vote. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
No further discussion. Representative Moeller to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've been in the House of Representatives for 9 years. This is the first time I've had a bill that has been chief code by Representative DeLuca, so that for that very reason, I would encourage an aye vote. Thank you.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 764 pass? All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote nay. The voting is open. All voted who wish. All voted who wish. Have all voted who wish. Mr. Clerk, please take the record. On this question, there are 115 voting yes, 0 voting no, 0 voting present. This bill, having received the constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed. Page 6 of the calendar, Senate bills on second reading, SB 1352. Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 1352, a bill for an act concerning education. The bill was read for a second time previously. Amendment number 1 was adopted in committee. No floor amendments, no motions are filed.
Third reading, Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 1352, bill for an act concerning education. Third reading of the Senate bill.
Representative Carroll.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Members of the General Assembly, today I present to you SB 1352. It clarifies the process of resigning from a licensed professional educator position prior to the school year. Educators need to submit their resignation 30 days prior to the student being there, and that during the school year that this board must approve this resignation. We've worked on an amendment to get to kind of satisfy some of the opposition, and I ask for a yes vote. Thank you.
Leader Windhurst is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
He indicates he will.
Thank you. Representative, you mentioned the amendment remove the opposition of the Principals Association, I believe the Association of School Boards. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What is the reason for this change being brought?
There was just some of the language in there wasn't as clear, so this cleared up some of the language to make sure that it was more clear how the process went. So they asked for this clarification. So the bill came over from the Senate. We had agreed to the amendment when it came over here. We did that to get them to go to neutral.
And a part of this is designed to give teachers notice when there may be some hold on their license by the state superintendent. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
No further discussion. Representative Carroll to close.
I ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
The question is, so Senate Bill 1352 pass. All in favor vote aye. All opposed vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record on this question. There are 99 voting yes, 13 voting no, 0 voting present, and this bill, having received the constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed. Senate Bill 1446, Mr. West. Going once, Mr. West. Out of the record. Senate Bill 1555, Representative Avalar. Out of the record. Senate Bill 1611, Representative Dittich. Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 1611, a bill for an act concerning government. The bill was read for a second time previously. No committee amendments, no floor amendments, no motions are filed.
Third reading. Please read the bill, Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 1611, a bill for an act concerning government. Third reading of the Senate bill.
Representative Dittich.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 1611 creates the Firefighter Training Leave of Absence Act. It allows state employees the opportunity to obtain basic operations firefighter certifications. Throughout most of our state, voluntary firefighters play an indispensable role protecting property and saving lives. However, we have a severe shortage of volunteer firefighters in Illinois. The purpose of this bill is to help address the shortage. The bill is an initiative of the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association. Thank you for your consideration. Happy to answer any questions.
Representative Gasty is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
The case he will.
Thank you. Representative, we filed a fiscal impact note, and did you have a chance to review that note?
I did, yes, sir.
And can you tell the floor what it said?
Yes, so it indicated two potential costs to the state. I'll start with the second one first because it's a little easier, related to the potential software changes that would need to be made. We don't think that that's going to be probably any fiscal impact because this bill is modeled directly after the regulations that apply to members of the National Guard and military reserve that go on leave. So that second part we don't think will be applicable at all. The first, sorry, go ahead.
So the training they're receiving, is that to prepare them for another line of work?
Not another line of work. This is for volunteer firefighters.
So it's only for volunteer firefighters.
Right, so they don't get paid for their service as a volunteer firefighter.
Are we creating a fund to allow them or to allow other members of the public to participate in this, or is this only available to state employees?
This bill only applies to state employees.
And as far as anyone participating in this, is it true that they could only be in service for the state for 1 day before we'd have to provide this leave?
No, no one is eligible for this unless they've been in service for 6 months. Additionally, they have to be a fully rostered member of a fire department at a municipality or a fire protection district. So there's several limitations in the bill over who is eligible to participate in this.
Okay. I'm going to wait and see if there's any other debate on this, hearing what you have to say. I'm going to determine how I'll vote. I'm always very supportive of the fire services and people looking to become part of the fire service. I'm concerned about the fiscal impact to the state, what it will have. I mean, these people, their jobs still have to be covered, and we'll see what happens. Thank you.
Representative Windhorst is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
He indicates he will.
Thank you. If an individual who's a state employee is also being compensated by the fire district or in some other way, what impact does that have on their other pay or the state pay?
If they are compensated in the course of their fire training that they are on leave, then their pay from the state will be reduced by that amount. So nobody will be able to double dip as a result of this legislation.
And during prior questioning, you mentioned that this is just for volunteers rather than those who are employed by a fire district or by a municipality.
Correct.
And where is that specified in the statute?
I will, give me one moment. Right, if you're a full-time employee of the state of Illinois, you couldn't also be a full-time employee of a fire district or a fire protection or a municipal fire department. Additionally, we put into this bill rulemaking authority for CMS, and I suspect that may be one of the issues that gets clarified through the rulemaking authority.
And this is being done to address issues with hiring, training, and retention of firefighters. Is that the purpose behind the bill?
Illinois, like every other state in the country, has a severe shortage of volunteer firefighters, and volunteer firefighters are a critical component to protecting life and property in about 80% of the landmass of our state. So we want to do what we can to make sure that our fire departments have the manpower and resources they need to keep people safe.
Thank you.
Representative Cabello is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bill. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a great bill. And if anybody would understand how much a volunteer fireman actually made, this is something that will help immensely. Many of the volunteer fire folks are getting paid maybe $12 per call. $12 per call that they show up to help save us. We have a major problem with filling many of these volunteer departments. And Representative Dedich, I would love to be a chief call on this bill, and I would highly recommend an aye vote.
Representative Weaver is recognized.
To the bill. I've got so many wonderful volunteer fire departments in my district. I just want to thank you for bringing this bill forth. These men and women do it out of the kindness of their heart to serve their community. And this is, I think, just a small thing to show them how much we appreciate what we're doing. I urge an aye vote.
Representative Dedich to close.
Thank you, everybody, for your consideration of this important bill. Like Representative Cabello, Representative Weaver said, I think this will be a small but important step to increase the resources that our volunteer fire departments have. Thank you for your consideration, and I would ask for an aye vote.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 1611 pass? All in favor vote aye, all opposed vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record. On this question, there are 115 voting yes, 0 voting no, 0 voting present, and this bill, having received the constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed. Page 7, Senate bills on second reading. Representative Kifowit, Senate Bill 1629. Mr. Clerk.
Senate Bill 1629, a bill for an act concerning public employee benefits. The bill was read for a second time previously. No committee amendments. Floor amendment number 1 is offered by Representative Kifowit.
Representative Kifowit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask for the adoption of floor amendment number 1. Floor amendment number 1 is just a technical change.
Representative Kifowit moves adoption of floor amendment number 1. All in favor say aye, opposed say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Any further amendments, Mr. Clerk?
No further amendments, but notes have been requested and not yet filed.
Representative Kifowit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request the notes to be inapplicable. They don't really apply to this bill.
Representative Kifowit has moved to rule the notes inapplicable. All in favor vote aye, all opposed vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record on this question. There are 69 yeses, 39 noes, 0 voting present, and the notes are deemed inapplicable. Anything further, Mr. Clerk?
No further amendments, no further motions.
Third reading. Mr. Clerk, please read the bill.
Senate Bill 1629, a bill for an act concerning public employee benefits. Third reading of this Senate bill.
Representative Kifowit.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, we saw the companion bill yesterday in Senate Bill 1630. This is again a parity bill for Local 2. We talked about it at length yesterday. It is to have parity with the downstate fire in terms of average salary calculations is what this bill pertains to.
Representative Reich is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to go straight to the bill because we spoke about yesterday a lot about what these two bills, which are companion bills, are going to be about. Basically, what we're trying to do is bring Chicago Fire into conformity and compliance with, or in conformity with downstate police and fire. A little history, I think, is important here because back when we first did the consolidation of the funds that became the bill that where we put all the funds together under police and fire downstate, it was requested of the Chicago Fire Department to oppose that, and they agreed for whatever reasons they agreed to, with the promise that there would be discussion down the road about consolidation, which never happened. And we have a new mayoral administration and wondering whether that's going to happen under this one. But the fact is that we need to start addressing the issues of Tier 2. This bill does that for one discrete union, albeit one that is very, very visible both to the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois, and both in terms of its impact by itself and its impact upon fire districts statewide. I voted for this bill in committee for the same reason I voted for 1630 in the committee yesterday and discussed yesterday, because we need to start talking about Tier 2. We're not talking about Tier 2. We need to. We're starting to get the idea, people are starting to find out that, oh, we got a problem here. The Chicago Tribune yesterday railed in its editorial page that, oh my God, this is going to cost the city of Chicago $3 billion. This is going to cost us $3 billion to bring us into compliance. Well, where the hell was the Chicago editorial page 12, 13 years ago when Tier 2 was passed and we knew that this was going to happen? All of a sudden, chickens have come home to roost, and we're sitting here now looking at the city of Chicago complaining about a $3 billion cost for something it could have done 12 years ago. The chickens are coming home to roost. Tier 2 is going to cost us a lot of money. Yeah, this is going to be a Christmas tree over here again, just like 1630 was yesterday. There are going to be people on my side of the aisle who are going to vote against this. I'm going to vote for it, not because I like the bill, not because there's been any kind of fiscal impact determined here. Yeah, there are people saying we should have fiscal impact notes. We filed notes on this, and they've just been ruled inapplicable. What kind of business are we running here when we are not willing to talk about the pension, the fiscal cost of something that's going to cost this much? It's inapplicable. The pension note is meant to determine how much of an impact this is going to have on the funding ratio of that pension. That was ruled inapplicable. Good God, people, this is what we're here to talk about. What are we going to do with our pensions? When Tier 2 goes completely out of control and your local tax bills go up because Tier 2 employees are suing because they don't have the kind of income from pensions that they should be guaranteed, I want you to remember this debate. I want you to remember how you voted on this. You know, when I first started practicing law, I did a lot of work with the IRS, and I was talking to IRS agents many times, and this story applies here. People generally go into government service not because of, you know, when people go into government service, they generally go in knowing that the pay rates aren't going to be that great. But they go in knowing that they've got a reasonable amount of job security and that they're going to have a good retirement. Well, here in the state of Illinois, we know that our public employees are paid quite well because we're constantly giving them pay increases, and they probably have deserved it, and they probably earn it. And they've got job security because it's almost impossible to fire anybody these days, even no matter how incompetent they are in their job. But when we look at the pension system in this state, not just from the standpoint of people who are going to be collecting benefits, but those of us who have to pay for them, I think it's important for us to know in a fiscal note what that's going to cost. How much are we going to pay for this increase in benefits? Yes, I'm voting for this increase in benefits because I want people to know where I stand. I want to fix this mess, and by voting no, I'm not giving you any opportunity to say anything to me but, oh, Reich stood up and said something, but he really didn't mean it. I mean it. I voted yes on this bill. I don't care what anybody else decides to vote. This is my stand on saying this pension system needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed now.
Representative Calkins is recognized.
Will the sponsor yield?
She indicates she will.
Representative, does this bill only affect firefighters in the city of Chicago?
Correct. This affects Local 2 firefighters.
Would you like my support for this bill? I don't live in Chicago.
I would like all members to support this bill.
So you want my support for something in Chicago, but you won't support what we want in McLean County?
I think each individual bill has to stand on its own merits. You can vote whichever way you wish. Of course, support for bills are always important and appreciated. This is a bill for parity for the firefighters to match the downstate firefighters, and it pertains to Local 2.
I'm willing to vote for your bill. I think the people of Chicago deserve this. I think the taxpayers of Chicago deserve to know what it's going to cost, though. That's a concern. But the firefighters, I support firefighters all over. This isn't going to affect me. It's not going to affect my property taxes. So, you know, in the spirit of cooperation, something that you don't want to extend to us, I will extend to you.
Representative Kifwood to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate an aye vote on this bill. Again, presented in committee was actuarial analysis with regard to this bill. The pension note was filed that members can read on their computers. The other fiscal notes were deemed inapplicable, but this again is a parity bill. It's a companion bill, the one that we voted for yesterday, and I ask for your support.
The question is, shall Senate Bill 1629 pass? All in favor, vote aye. All opposed, vote nay. The voting is open. All voted who wish. All voted who wish. Have all voted who wish. Mr. Clerk, please take the record on this question. There are 98 yeses, 15 noes, 2 voting present, and this bill, having received the constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed.
Thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. And while you're at it, please leave us a comment. Thank you for watching.